If you want Colts talk all year long, you're in the right place.
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown. He's going to fire upfield. It's broken up. Tipped and intercepted by the Colts.
This is the official Colts Podcast, giving you an updated look at what's new with the Horseshoes.
Colts have it. Interception. 2 seconds left, and the Colts are going to win.
In the Indiana Union Construction Industry radio studio, let's get the podcast started.
It is week 17. You do not have to adjust your calendar. It feels like training camp was like 5 minutes ago.
You're not kidding.
But there are 2 games left in the NFL regular season. We're down to the wire, the nitty-gritty. The playoffs are on the line. I mean, what else can you say? Let's get hyped up. Come on. This is the Thursday official Colts podcast. That's Casey Vallier. That's Bill Brooks. I'm a flabbergasted Matt Taylor. Thanks for joining us here on YouTube and the Colts Audio Network, wherever you download your podcast. We got a big one today. We're talking about Colts and Raiders, Week 17. And I feel like, do we need to go all Michael Scott out there? Do we need to explain to the audience like we're Michael Scott how the playoffs work? Because I look at the standings all day, every day, and I barely understand.
Yeah,
So do we need to go through that?
I don't think so, because
No.
We'd be here all day too. That's
hurts
the problem.
my brain. It actually hurts my brain.
Long story short, I was mentally prepared to do it, but since
Okay.
you guys don't want
Yeah.
to, that's fine. Long story short, just keep on winning.
Just
because
win.
You have 4 8-7 AFC teams, including the Colts. The Colts are hanging on for dear life right now in the 7th and final wild card spot because they hold the tiebreaker over those other 3 teams. You have the Texans, you have the Steelers, and you have the Bengals, who are all also 8-7. But the Colts have a better AFC record than those teams at the moment. The Colts are 6-4 inside the AFC conference, which is why they have the tiebreaker over all of those teams and thus sit in the 7th and final spot in the AFC. So
And
there
why
you go. I
last
did
week,
it.
And
I did
why
it.
last week didn't kill you, because it was an NFC
game,
opponent.
right, not
So when it
AFC
came down
opponent.
to look at the final 3, that was the one game that you said if you're going to lose one,
Yeah.
that would have been the one you lose.
Yes.
But
Yeah, you don't want to. You cannot keep on that mantra. You got to
cannot.
keep on
No.
rolling here with 2 games left. And by the way, they're both AFC competition. You got the Raiders and the Texans. Big one today, like we talked about. We're going to preview this Week 17 ball game. Rodney Thomas is going to join us, and all of a sudden, Rodney in the crosshairs in terms of importance for
Yeah.
this team.
Yes.
With Julian Blackmon's injury, he's going down, or did go down, I should say, in Atlanta last week with a shoulder injury, has since been placed on IR, so his season, at least for the rest of the regular season, is over. The soonest that Julian can come back with this team is the AFC Championship game, should the Colts make it that far in the postseason. So we'll talk about next man up. That would be Nick Cross, but you have 2 second-year players at safety now with Nick Cross and Rodney Thomas in the back end of the secondary. And also the Colts have had some inconsistencies, a lot of up-and-down nature of their team the last 3 weeks, some feast or famine. So we're going to dive into that as well, and then we'll close it out with some things that you should be impressed by with these Colts and these Raiders after their last couple of performances heading into Week 17 here. But like I said, let's start with feast or famine.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I got to double back to you. Merry Christmas to you. I know you had a fantastic day with
Merry
family.
Christmas, yes.
Yeah.
Had family in, and daughter came back from Chicago. Just wife, daughter, and I.
I
just
knew it was a
kinda-
big day.
Yeah, just relaxed,
Yeah.
took it easy, opened presents, went to sleep, took a nap, got up, and then we went out to dinner. We went out to dinner as a family. And enjoyed
Really?
that. Yeah, we went out to dinner
Like
as
the
a family.
Christmas story. Rah, 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 rah.
he's smiling at me. He's smiling.
No, we went out to dinner,
Where'd
had
you
a
go?
good time. Went to Ruth Chris.
Oh, it was open.
It was open. Yeah,
kidding.
had a nice
good to
dinner
know.
there, and
All right.
enjoyed ourselves, just relaxed, and then came home and just enjoy ourselves, talk, laughing, and having a good time at home.
Yeah, I knew you were really looking forward to it. So that's
Well,
awesome.
Merry Christmas to you
Yeah,
as well.
I
and
appreciate you.
Of course,
I appreciate you.
Casey as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go feast or famine real quick here. The first feast or famine about this Colts team going into Week 17 here, the scoring, all right? The offensive scoring last week, a season low, tied a season low 10 points against the Falcons, a total flip job from the week before when the Colts scored 30 against the Steelers. And, Bill, when you look at it, the Colts have scored 14 or less in 2 of their last 3 games, right? They had 14 against the Bengals, 3 weeks ago. But in the last 9 games, bigger picture sample size, in the last 9, Casey, the Colts have scored at least 27 in 6 of those games. So is this offense right now, in terms of their efficiency and their productivity scoring points, is it more feast or famine heading into the final 2 games? What does your gut say? Where they're at right now?
Oh, that's so hard. I mean, I would probably say it's probably more feast, in a way. I feel like you have put the sample size out there. You talk about the 6 of 9. I think that's more to what to expect. But what you've seen lately, you kind of hope that's just a flash in the pan. One of the benefits, I think, is the last 2 games. You talk about the low scoring output, both those games on the road. You come back home. Hopefully you have an outpour like you did against Pittsburgh, and you can get that thing rolling again. This team, for a lot of the year, you kind of knew what to expect. It was almost like week in and week out they were scoring 20-plus points. And then here down the stretch, we've seen a little bit of, that peaks and valleys. So it's kind of hard for me to kind of put my finger on what it is. I really hope the last, 2 of the last 3 where they're scoring 14 or less is just more, that's an outlier. But we'll have to see what happens on Sunday.
I'm going to take a bigger picture, big overview of it. If you look at the whole season, you just mentioned 2 of the last 3 that scored 14 points or less. Well, it's only been 3 games this total season that they scored 14 points or less.
Right.
The other game was the New England game where they won.
They got a victory,
Yeah, they had won out of that game. So I like to take the whole sample size because in a season, you're going to have games where you're going to have to fight to score and fight to get points, and hopefully you can win those games. We've lost 2 of those games. I think if the Colts can continue to fight, I think they will be better. So I like to look at it from a big picture, the bigger sample size, and the Colts for the most part has been scoring 20 or more points in each of those games, except for 3 games we just mentioned.
Raiders defense is on fire right now.
Yes,
they held 14 points to the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll talk about that coming up in just a second. All right, let's go defensive sacks for the Colts. They rank 5th in the NFL this year with 47 sacks. By the way, that's a new Indianapolis-era single-season franchise record. But last week, only 1 sack on Taylor Heineke. They only got to him 4 times, only 4 quarterback hits for the entire game for the Colts pass rush. That went along with no sacks against the Bengals 2 weeks before. The week before that, kind of sandwiched between those lack of pass rush days, you had 4 sacks against the Steelers. So where are you at, Bill? Feast or famine with this pass rush right now, because it's either been here, way up high, or down here, way down low with 1 or fewer sacks lately?
Going into this game, I would say that the Raiders game, with Aidan O'Connell, not a mobile quarterback, not a quarterback that's going to run around a lot, not a quarterback that I think you really have to worry about getting out of the pocket, someone that's going to sit in the pocket. I think the Colts can get to him. So I'm going to go feast. And, Kansas City got 2 sacks last week against him. So I'm going to go feast that the guys are at home. Yeah. Some crowd noise would help. Offensive line have trouble getting off the ball. Samson Ebicom, Kwity Paye, all those guys getting off the ball on the snap, getting to the quarterback. Aidan O'Connell in the pocket, not mobile quarterback. I think the Colts can get to Aidan O'Connell, so I'm going to go feast.
All right, he's going feast. What do you think?
I agree. This is one of those games for me, and I'm not saying it's like he's been non-existent, but I feel like this is a DeForest Buckner type of game.
Ooh.
You count on your guys that are your key players in these key moments, and I think DeForest Buckner, not that we haven't heard his name a lot, but ultimately, mainly you talk about what happened during the loss of Grover Stewart. I mean, Buckner had multiple guys on him every single time the ball was snapped. So I think getting back into that groove, I think you're going to see a little bit more on 99 this weekend, really make his presence felt. And I'm going to definitely go with Bill. I think the Colts can get through this. It's an offensive line that have had some injury concerns throughout, too. You talk about the immobile quarterback, also a rookie who – ultimately, he's been kind of thrown into the fire. We saw last week they got a win, but he didn't complete a pass after the first quarter. So I'm sure mentally he's a little rattled. There's
that's an unbelievable stat.
It really is.
It
really is. Especially on the road playing that team.
Exactly.
Against a team like the Kansas City
That's how
Chiefs.
good their defense was.
And you win the game.
Running game.
And you win the game.
So I'm with Bill. I think this weekend, I think it bodes well for the Colts pass rush.
All right, speaking of the running game, the Colts running game really struggled against the Falcons. Only had 92 yards, and it felt like less, to be honest with you.
It did.
A lot of 1- and 2-yard gains throughout the contest with Jonathan Taylor and company. The Colts have been under 100 in 3 of their last 4 running the ball and 5 of their last 7. But on the contrary, the Colts just rushed for 150, or I should say have rushed for over 150 in 5 games. And between those two struggling outputs between the Bengals and the Falcons, the Colts gashed the Steelers for 177. So, again, it's feast or famine within the run game. That's obviously why we're talking about these things. Bill, is the running game right now more feast or famine heading into this critical one at Lucas Oil Stadium where it's, are you saying this is a must-win? I know we're kind of veering off topic a little bit. Are you there yet?
Where are we, Bill?
I know the mathematician that is Bill Brooks.
No. Actually, I do not know the math if we do not win. But I don't think this is a game where you can say, oh, must or not must.
Right.
It's a game you just have to go out there and win because you have to win these last 2 games.
Yeah.
You said earlier.
He still won't say it.
He
still will not say it.
That word must will never come out of Bill's mouth.
It's like one of those games.
I get shivers when I hear that word.
It's like one of those games, like hypothetically, like if you're in a tough financial situation, right, and it's the first of the month, and you have a couple hundred extra $100 on top of your mortgage being due. It's like, man, if you lose this game, that's the mortgage coming out. Then you got to scrape by, until you get paid again. That's what this game is like. The Raiders winning, that's like the mortgage coming out. So feast or famine, though, in the running game.
Okay, on the running game, I'm going to say famine. And the reason I say it's not so much that the lack of 100 yards, but the games where they haven't ran the ball well, they'll average like 2.5 yards.
Yep.
And to me, that's more indicative of how the team is playing. When you only get 2.5 yards, especially on first and second down, put you back in the third down situation, make it third and longer. So I think right now the Colts have to get better on making better use of yards per carry, not so much total yards. So to me, you got to have that, you got to get up in that 4-yard range on per carries. And if you could do that, I think that will help you out. And then I would like to see some more explosive plays, explosive run plays.
No doubt.
Those are the things that I think, one of the things that the Colts have been lacking in this year. So if they can get some more explosive plays in the running game, I think that would help. And like I said earlier, yards per carry to me is more important than just the total yards.
Going back to the point you talked about, Matt, with the 150 yards in 5 games, and if you look at what they did passing in those games, over 200 yards, so it was more of that balanced attack. And I think that's part of where the issue has been. It's like when you look at when they've struggled, it's, Gardner's throwing the ball 45, 50 times. I think that's where this offense is just, if you can find that balance. I know it's, talk about cliche and all of that, but I think that's been the issue is when you can't get one thing going, you have to kind of alter what you're doing, and that's where the struggles have been. In Atlanta, you talked about it. 92 yards, I was a little shocked to see it was that high, to be honest, because it felt like every time they had a run play, they were looking at
Gardner Minshew
second and 11.
Gardner Minshew had a 24-yard run
and
there,
that was,
too.
that was part of it. And that's the biggest thing. I agree with Bill. I think it has been more famine, throughout. And, it's something where we saw arguably the best offensive line performance in Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago, and you saw the run game just rolling. And I'm not saying you have to be like that every week. I just think you have to have a semblance of that. You've got to show a little bit more glimpses. And I'm with Bill where, you don't have to go out and run for 190 yards, but you just have to keep the defense honest. And that's what I think they really need to do is just be able to establish the run. You don't have to count on it to be you're going to go out and average 6 yards a clip. You just have to be more balanced and make sure that it's effective enough that the rest of the offense can perform at what the level we have seen it at multiple times this year.
Yeah, good stuff right there on the Colts running game. The Raiders have been feast or famine as well. They've got some aspects of their team that's been kind of either here way up high or way down low. How about their running game? They rank 31st in the NFL in rushing, all right? So there's only 32 teams in the league. All right, so they're second to last. But that's been the part of their game that they've honestly leaned on the most during this 2-game winning streak. You talked about the struggles and kind of the inconsistencies from Aiden O'Connell not completing a pass past the first quarter in Kansas City. It didn't matter because they ran for a season-high 157 against the Chiefs on Christmas Day a couple of days ago. They've scored 83 points in their last 2 games. Obviously, when you score a franchise-high 63 against the Chargers, that's going to help. But in both of those games, they've eclipsed the 100-yard mark. And if you look at their splits, the Raiders, that is, despite not rushing for over 100 yards in the first 8 games of the season, they've broken the century mark in 5 of their last 7. So they're still not good season-wise, but if you look at their last 7 games, they're very respectable running the football. In fact, when they run it well, they win. In 7 wins this year, they're averaging $113 on the ground. In 8 losses, Casey, that number is down to 66. So you're not going to win football games that way. So, Bill, as the Raiders' running game is a more feast or famine heading into Lucas Oil Stadium here?
I'm going to say right now it's feast.
Yeah.
And I look at those games where you just mentioned in those 5 games, there has been only 1 game they have rushed for 100 yards or more and lost. Those other games they've won.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very important for them so they know that. And I think Antonio Pierce, that's the style of football he wants to play.
Oh, yeah.
He wants to be physical. He wants to run the ball. He wants to establish the run. He wants to make sure that, they control the line of scrimmage. And also from a defensive standpoint, be physical and defensive style of ball. So I think they've put a more emphasis on running the ball, and they've done a nice job of running the ball since he's taken over. So I think for right now, I'm going to say feast for the Raiders for running the ball.
And I would agree. And the one thing that I was shocked by, too, is they've done so the last 2 weeks without Josh Jacobs.
Yes.
I mean, he's a guy who he led
Kazir White.
Yeah, I mean, he has been really, really good. And, I mean,
Yeah.
Jacobs led the league in rushing last year. So, he is a guy who definitely he moves the needle when it comes to the running game. So him being sidelined, you would almost envision the running game would even suffer even more. But it hasn't been the case. And I think part of all it, we talk about it at all, it's been there's just a new life inside that Raiders team with Antonio Pierce at the helm.
Yeah.
And the buy-in is there. These guys are really rattling. I mean, it seems like all the players want Antonio Pierce to be the guy moving forward.
Yes.
And,
they
and
play
sometimes
hard. They do.
So, sometimes that confidence, sometimes just that swagger can really help an entire team do things that they haven't been doing. And clearly I think the offensive line has taken this to heart and say, hey, here's what we're going to do because, yeah, Aiden O'Connell, he's a youngster. He's not – Jimmy Garoppolo, you knew what Jimmy Garoppolo was. Aiden O'Connell's still trying to figure out what he is in the league. So giving him that security blanket of that running game being what it is, it's really helping this team grow. And you've definitely seen it over the last couple of weeks, so I would definitely go with what Bill's saying. It is feast, and that's something that's a little scary because you don't know right now as we tape this, we don't know what the status of Josh Jacobs is going to be. So if you can add him to a team that has that confidence and is rolling right now, that really is a little something that's worrisome because the Colts rushing defense has been an area of concern the entire year. So
over 108 of the last 9.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear about the Kazir White story?
No.
Last week? So he had a season-high career high 145 rushing against the Chiefs. He told his offensive line, guys, he had a premonition. He said, guys, if you help me go over 100 yards in this game, national stage, right, national audience, Christmas Day, everybody watching, I'll buy everybody a new pair of Air Jordans. So
I love it.
He goes over the century mark, and it's going to cost him a couple $100.
Hey,
not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad.
I'm sure we probably have some incentives in his contract.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
So I'm
there
sure
might have been also a little bonus that he got.
Offset.
Just
Yeah.
a little offset.
Just write it off. We'll be all right. Everybody's getting a brand new pair of Air Jordans there. No, but to drive it home, I mean, again, when the Raiders, when they run the ball, they win. All right, when they have at least 26 carries in a game, Bill, they're 7-0. When they have under 26 carries in a game, 0-8. So when they're afforded the ability to run the ball and take things off of Aiden O'Connell or whomever the quarterback is, dating back to the early part of the season, they have success. Yeah. So that's the benchmark. That's something to keep an eye out. You heard it here first. You can impress your friends at the bar. 26 carries for the Raiders. That's the line they need to hit. All right.
Impress your friends at the bar with that. Hey.
Yeah, that's not going to pick you up any bonus points with the ladies, I can tell you that. But You know what to watch out for on Sunday come 1 o'clock when the Raiders and Colts get together. All right, speaking of feast or famine, a guy that has to feast now in the secondary like we talked about. Without Julian Blackmon, that's Rodney Thomas. He has started 25 games in his first and second years in the NFL, second-year guy out of Yale. And now that young secondary is getting even younger with Nick Cross having to step up in that spot, filling in for Julian Blackmon. So Rodney Thomas joined us earlier today on the Official Colts Podcast to talk about stepping up, being more of a leader, and the sense of urgency for this team heading into the final 2 games with the playoffs on the line. Inside the studio, as promised, joining us now, Colts safety in year number 2. He is number 25 for your Colts on the roster. That would be Mr. Rodney Thomas. Rodney, thanks for the time. Happy holidays to you, man. How you doing?
Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Now, you're having a great season. 34 tackles. You've got 2 picks. You got 4 passes defensed. I think you're having a pretty good season. I always am curious when I talk to you guys, your players. You guys are your harshest critics. How do you think your season's going to this point?
I know, like you said, like stats or whatever, but I feel like I can always do more. I feel like I got more. Just always just trying to improve upon the last game, the last play, the last season, just always trying to get better.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And obviously I know the setting in which you're going into these final 2 games is a little bit uneven. Personally, it's always tough to see, a teammate, a friend go out and Julian Blackmon done for the rest of the regular season with that shoulder injury. How tough was that to see just on a personal level, considering all the work and all the fight that he had, put in this season to stay healthy, having a great year, and then to see it, come up short in terms of his availability the last 2 games? How tough was that to see on your part?
No, definitely. I hated that for him. I don't like seeing anybody get hurt. And then JB, when we came in, just from day one when I came in, we was always real close. He was always helping me out from the jump and stuff like that. And just seeing how he goes about his day, day to day, his work, his preparation, different things like that. I just know. It just sucks to see something like that, but I know he put himself in a good spot. Hopefully he comes back healthy. He gets his body right and comes back to just doing what he knows how to do and flying around.
Kind of piggybacking off from Matt's question, what is the thing that the defense is going to miss by not having Julian back there, especially you guys in the back end there?
Definitely just his presence, his communication, his work on the field, everything that you see on the tape, it all speaks to itself in his day-to-day work ethic and different things like that. It's definitely gonna be missed. But like I said, we all prepare the same way. We all try to hold ourselves to those same standards. So when the next guy comes in, there's no drop off.
Now, when you talk about communication, what are some of the things that you mean when you say communication back there in the back end, as far as him communicating with everyone to make sure they're in the right spot or whatever they have to
just
do?
Like alignment, any checks within the call, trying to be a couple plays ahead, a couple steps ahead of what the offense might do, just everything top down. He's a great communicator.
Okay. Rodney, it feels like you've been here for 5 years. Because you've started a boatload of games. Like I said, you've started 25 games, but you're only in your second year. Where do you think you've grown the most from the end of last year to now with all of that experience under your belt? Where do you think you are as a player?
Just understanding how the game's played and what it takes to be great, what it takes to be elite. Just like I said earlier, just always trying to I'm never satisfied with anything. I know I never got it. Just always trying to improve, build upon just anything across the board. Just tackle him, ball in the air, take it out the air, communication, being a couple plays ahead, just getting everybody set up, but just not knowing my position, knowing multiple positions, just everything across the board. Yeah,
and also too, kind of to paraphrase off of what you just said, also understanding what it means to be a pro too. Do you think you've found that balance of great play on the field, but also understanding what it means to be a pro off the field and all that it takes to be great on game days with your preparation, Sunday, or I should say Monday through Saturday to lead you into game day?
Yeah, definitely. I've been lucky to come in with a bunch of great leaders in front of me who played a lot of football, who played a lot of had a lot of experience at this level from this team, other teams coming in, and just seeing the things that they do, and just trying to work it into my own game and just try to make it my own and help myself out.
You talk about some other leaders that you have on this team. Now, 2 guys that were a late round draft pick or undrafted free agents are on this team as far as Zaire Franklin and Kenny Moore.
Yeah.
Two guys that, like I said, one late-round draft pick, one undrafted free agent coming in this team. You're a late-round draft pick. What have you taken from their careers that you can apply to your game, or just look at yourself and say, okay, this is the type of person I want to be for my career?
Definitely. Just very simply, they take every snap, like every play every day, as if it could be their last. Like, you never know, like, when your last play is going to be, when your last snap is going to be. So they put their full attention to detail, their full effort into everything they do day to day, and it's been shown throughout like their play, throughout their career. They've had long, successful careers, and many more successful, like, different things like in front of them as well.
That's Rodney Thomas with us, Colts safety. So Julian Blackmon, unfortunately, out for the remainder of the rest of the regular season, like we talked about. Fickle league, next man up, but the beat goes on. That next man up is Nick Cross, a fellow second-year player just like yourself. What have you seen from him that tells you he's ready to go? He's ready for this opportunity for him for more playing time.
No, definitely, Nick. No, nothing but growth, nothing but just trending up in like everything that he's been doing like since he got here. Just communication, his play, weight room, just football player and just being a pro in general. Like, it's been nothing but on the up end since he's came here. And we knew like high draft pick, like his play like was never a question. Like, we know he can play. So I'm real excited to see like how he does and how he goes out there. It's gonna be fun.
How do you think you guys complement one another?
When we came in since like freshman, or I said freshman, but like since rookie year, like we were always like rooming together and living together, different things like that, like through camp, and then remember like throughout the season, like we had like roommates and stuff. And then he was my roommate, so always just talking and communicating. So like we're on the same page. Like we get along like pretty good. So like we know like what the other one's like thinking, and different things like that. So it's good to have someone like that on the back end you can communicate good with.
How's he as a roommate?
It was good.
Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah. Pick up. Does he maybe chip in for some snacks or something?
Where, like, in the room?
Like training camp or something like that?
Oh, yeah. Rookies, we all had to buy. Like take turns, like, buying snacks, like, different things like that.
Yeah.
So it was just rotating.
Rite of passage.
I know. Now, going to the last 2 weeks of regular season, big games coming up.
Definitely.
What's the mindset of the locker room, mindset of you guys going into this week's game and for the rest of the season?
Definitely just taking it 1 week at a time, just trying to go 1-0 this week, just doing what we got to do. Body-wise, preparation-wise, and like I said, just taking it one play at a time, one snap at a time, one series at a time, just trying to get it done, go 1-0 this week, and then come back out of that next week, repeat the process.
You talk about 1-0 this week, and that's against the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah.
What have you seen from this Raiders offense that can cause some problems?
Definitely. They got weapons all across the board, good receiving core, good running back, good quarterback, trusts his receivers, puts the ball or trust his receivers, trying to get them the ball, different things like that, check downs, whatever it may be, shots outside. So it's going to be a good offense to go to and a good challenge for us, and just excited to go out there and just try to make some plays.
And going along with that, I mean, Bill, what a major opportunity for this young secondary to make a statement and to build off of one another and grow with each other out there. You've got yourself, Nick Cross, you guys are second-year players, and you have Juju Brents, Jalen Jones as starters. Those guys are rookies. I mean, what's the ceiling and the room for growth with this young secondary as you guys have a chance to really play a lot together and, again, build off of one another?
Like you said, like the ceiling's like super high. We came in and all of us have been fortunate to just be in the mix and get some burn and like get some play time like on the field. So we really getting like the experience early, like taking like those hits early and like seeing really like what it takes like I said, like at an early age, early on in our careers. So it just helps us able to just come back like even like the next play or like the next series, next game, and just be able to build upon that and develop that further. Whereas you may not get that chance if you play like later down the line.
Yeah. Yeah, and to wrap up, Bill, I don't think it's a coincidence that a guy that's a 7th-round draft pick out of Yale comes in right away and basically by, week 3, week 4 last year of your rookie season, you're the starter. And the reason is because you've got to be a player, which you are, but you also have to be incredibly smart and intelligent, and you have to have that level of trust from the defensive coaches to put you out there. And that's to no surprise coming from the Ivy League. And, you're talking to two dummies compared to your education there, Mr. Rodney Thomas. You had 6 years of Yale education in college. I mean, I don't mean to make you feel uncomfortable, but, like, how smart are you?
I only had – it It was just 4.5.
Oh, only 4.5.
Yeah, we had with the COVID years, we had to take
year.
a semester off. So basically like 4.5. Basically.
And what would you be doing if you weren't playing in the NFL here?
I don't have a clue. I majored political science. We had a bunch of guys like take that route and then branched off into like a bunch of like different fields. So I had options open. So I was just trying to look and see what I like to do.
You don't want to run for office or anything like that? Or?
Nah, not right now.
Not right now. Oh, not right now.
No,
of course,
not
not
mayor.
right now. But I mean, a little
Maybe
bit
not
later
later
on.
either. I don't
No,
know.
he'd
How
be
you
the
guys
mayor.
see?
Yeah, the mayor. You'd be fixing all the potholes around town. You'd be getting something done. That'd be your platform. I'd vote for you right there. That's Rodney Thomas. He was the first Yale player drafted in the NFL. In 2022, you were the first Yale player drafted since 2018. And so you are the mayor of that secondary. And you're hawking down some balls, trying to get some more picks. He already has 2 of them on the year, looking for some more here in these final 2 games of the regular season. Rodney Thomas, again, happy New Year coming up, and let's get some more wins
Same
here in
with
the
you,
final 2.
For sure.
Yep.
Again, Rodney Thomas, the pride of Yale in year number 2, a stud and a mainstay in that secondary here for the Colts playing safety. And really appreciate his time earlier today on the official Colts podcast. We're brought to you by Wynn Las Vegas. Bill Brooks is back. Casey Vallier as well. I'm Matt Taylor. We're closing it out. But before we get on or move on to our last portion here, Bill, I do want to spend some time just magnifying the loss of Julian Blackmon. I mean, you talk about a guy that only missed 2 snaps to this point in the season before that shoulder injury, led the team in picks with 4. He was 3rd on the team in tackles. And, oh, by the way, the unfortunate thing for him, he's heading into a contract year. He's going to be a free agent this upcoming spring. So how big of a loss is this for the Colts? I know it's always next man up, but Julian Blackmon is just – he's a special guy and a special player for this team.
He is, and someone that's been, like you said, been very dependable this season, being out there playing, making some big plays. And to me, it's not just also the stats that he has out there. It's being out there, communicating with everyone, helping get people in the right spots, telling people what's going on, different formations, different motions, things like that, taking control of what's going on back there in the back. And that's a huge thing in the secondary for those guys to communicate with one another. So everyone's hopefully on the same page and in the right spot they need to be. So I think they're going to miss Julian in that aspect. Now, Nick Cross in there, I believe he'll do a fine job, but missing Julian's communication, his presence, his veteran leadership back there, I think that's going to be something that they miss.
And that's one of the things I think we talked about before the season when we looked at the youth in the secondary with guys like Juju Brents, Jalen Jones, and ultimately it was like, well, you've got some veterans in that secondary with Kenny Moore, Julian Blackmon to really help steady that ship and get these guys to kind of learn. Now, I'm not saying it's a good time to have an injury. I am glad that they've got 15 or so weeks of Julian's guidance to help push them through, but it's definitely going to be a big loss. And hearing a guy like Zaire Franklin earlier this week talk about the importance of a guy like Julian, that's where it really, I mean, you understand it when a guy like Zaire is praising Julian for being able to do anything and everything on the field other than that's where you see the importance. And I agree with you, Bill, from just that. What he's offering from a communication standpoint is going to be a definite big miss.
Yeah. Next man up, Nick Cross, getting his 2nd start, or I should say his 3rd start of his career and first since week 2 of last year in 2022, and he's still only 22 years old. I mean, we're talking about a guy that still can't even rent a car yet. All right? I mean, there's a lot on his shoulders, but he's ready. He's athletic as all good. I got a chuckle there in the back from Sherry. She appreciated that one, right? That's when you know.
Hey, there you go.
That's when you know.
There
Sherry's
you go.
the barometer there. All right, let's close out. This is a segment that I'm calling The Impression That I Get. Remember that old 90s song, The Impression That I Get, from the Mighty Mighty Bosstones?
Oh, yeah.
It's
Just a great song.
that was a terrible song.
Terrible
but
song.
That's what I came up with. The
You came up
impression
with it?
that
Sorry,
I get.
if the Mighty Mighty Bosstones are listening, I apologize.
Yeah,
but
there's
that
your-
song, if I don't ever have to hear it again, I'd be all right
There's
with it.
your first reference in the last decade. There you go. All right, so what are you most impressed by? All right, so let's talk about these Raiders here. Again, their backs were against the wall. They fired their head coach and Josh McDaniels. Here comes Antonio Pierce, but they've rebounded. They're 4-3 under the interim coach Pierce. They find themselves in the playoff hunt. They're 7-8. It's a long shot, but they have a chance to not only make the playoffs, but if they win out and the Chiefs lose out, The Raiders win the division, the AFC West, for the first time since 2002. And looking at the last 2 weeks, they've scored 83 points. They scored a franchise-high 63 points against the Chargers, and they knocked off the Chiefs on the road on Christmas Day. So looking at the last 2 weeks, Bill, what are you most impressed by? The 63 burger they put on L.A., or that huge win on the road against the Chiefs, snapping a 6-game losing skid to Kansas City?
That 63 burger is pretty impressive.
Tastes pretty good,
That's pretty impressive. But I'm actually going to go with the win against the Kansas City Chiefs.
All right.
And the reason I'm going to say that is because they went on the road to a division opponent, a team that is very tough to beat in Kansas City. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Mahomes has some incredible record after November.
It's the first loss in the division for Patrick Mahomes of his career in either November or December
against a division opponent.
Divisional opponent.
So I mean,
that's unbelievable.
That's unbelievable. And going in there, and
I so badly want to see the Chiefs play a road game, by the way, in the playoffs.
Oh yeah,
not to
too.
cut you
Of
off. Not
course.
to cut you off. Sorry.
But and to hold them to 14 points, the Chiefs, and go in there and beat them. That impressed me more than
with
the
Taylor
FP63.
Swift in the building too. I mean,
I'm not.
All right.
That part. I'm not.
Shut it down on that.
Yeah. But I mean, I think I'm very impressed with that. Going on the road in a hostile environment, winning a game, a division game, when your playoff lives are on the line, and they have to win. So to me, for those guys to take the pressure, go in there and beat Kansas City in their own backyard, to me, it was very impressive.
Yeah.
I agree completely with Bill, because you talk about their playoff lives, but also Kansas City. I mean, Kansas City is in, under the Mahomes era. This is kind of waters they're not familiar with, because ultimately they're fighting for that 1 seed year in and year out. And with that loss last week, I think that almost eliminates them from being in that first overall seed, the first round bye, and home field throughout. So
right.
That was a huge game for them. And I just felt watching the game, Kansas City was so out of sorts, and it's just unlike Kansas City to look that way. Now, I know this Kansas City team isn't what we have come to expect, because they've had a lot of issues, especially in the pass-catching standpoint, so it is a different team, but I agree with you. That win for the Raiders, and we talked about not being able to complete a pass after the first quarter and still defeating a team like the Raiders or the Chiefs, all of that is pretty impressive.
Yeah, Patrick Mahomes had won 11 of his last 12 games against the Raiders. Wow. And that was if you just watch the game and the struggles that every team in that division has had against the Chiefs, but specifically the Raiders. The Raiders have been the butt of a lot of jokes from the Chiefs. I mean, last year they played late in the season, and Andy Reid's calling that ring around the rosy play. I mean, that's a big listen.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly, that's a big middle finger
100%
to the Raiders.
Exactly.
I mean, it really is. It's 100%. Like we can just F around.
Yeah.
We can F around and do a kids game at the line of scrimmage and still beat you. And I think the Raiders had that in the back of their mind. They certainly played with a chip on their shoulder under Antonio Pierce. And if you just watch the game, at the end of the game, you visibly saw Antonio Pierce, like the weight of the world was lifted off of his shoulders. He took a big exhale and was just really emotional about that win, and rightfully so. I don't know if it was the same to the same degree the week before for the Colts against the Steelers. But there's just something about that, Bill, the human element of a huge game and then coming back the next week and just not having the same edge. That's what the Colts are hoping for this week from the Raiders, because I just don't think they can play with that same high and that same intensity that they had to have to knock off the Chiefs on the road.
And it's tough. They, like I said, they went on the road, play Kansas City. They have to come on the road now, fly across country just about for them to Indianapolis and play again. And they have to have a big game. It's a big game. It's a pressure game for them. Just like it's a pressure game for the Colts. So they have to play. So we'll see what happens. See if they can get up for the game and get up for the game for 4 quarters. It's going to be a long game.
Indeed. All right, the impression that I get, what are you most impressed by here? We got one more that I want to get into after this one. The Raiders started 3-5, like we said. Under Antonio Pierce, though, their defense has been lights out. Their defensive average since Antonio Pierce took over in Week 9 is 15.3 points per game. That ranks number 1 in the NFL in that span. And it makes sense, right? He's a defensive guy, former linebacker in the NFL. And they're also getting a ton of production from Malcolm Kuntz and also obviously from Max Crosby. Crosby's got 13.5 sacks. He's got 20 tackles for loss. So, Bill, what are you most impressed by? Is it Crosby's continued havoc or the defensive turnaround by the Raiders overall that, oh, by the way, includes 4 defensive touchdowns in the last two games? What are you most impressed by?
Don't get me wrong. Max Crosby is a game wrecker, and he's playing well. But going into the season, I kind of expected Max Crosby to be Max Crosby, to do his thing and be a game wrecker. So that doesn't impress me as much because I expected him to do it. Turning around that defense, all the guys playing together, playing well, holding, like I said earlier, Kansas City to 14 points, and scoring 4 touchdowns in the last 2 games. Just the things they have done and just how he has come in and changed things, not just so much as far as the scheme goes, but their mentality and how they're playing aggressive, playing physical, playing the old-style Raiders football.
Right.
And that's what he wants to do, and that's what they're doing. So give them credit. So I'm going to go with the whole defense as a whole, making that change and being impressed with the things they're doing, holding teams? You said the 15.3 points, 0.3 in that span. So give them credit, and I'm going with the whole defense.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you, Bill. I mean, we talk at nauseum, especially here with the Colts team. When they win the turnover battle, they win football games. And if you look at what the Raiders did the first 8 weeks under Josh McDaniels, they were -8 in the turnover battle. They've completely flipped that under Antonio Pierce. They're +7 in the 7 weeks that he's been under helm, which – and they're offensively not turning the football over at the same rate they were defensively. We talk about the touchdowns they've had from defensive, but also just it's just a complete shift in the mentality in that locker room. So and you talk about Max Crosby, you look at him and he's constantly in the backfield, but he does so many other things too. Yeah. He's great against the run. I mean, he's 3rd on the team in tackles. Like a lot of times when you look at these edge rushers, they'll have maybe 8 tackles outside of the 12 sacks that they rack up. And that's just what you get. Right. Not with Max Crosby. He is a guy who's going to play, he's going to play every down. He's going to be all over the field. So you know what to expect out of him. He is, it's one of those things. I said this before the Myles Garrett thing. I'm excited to see him in person because you watch him on TV and it's like, wow, he's all over the place. So watching him in person, he's just a different type of player. Rick Ventura is going to call him an ambient player. He is one of those guys. So he is definitely impressive. But I would agree with you. It's that switch that we've seen over the last handful of weeks.
Yeah, the Raiders now have 5 defensive touchdowns on the year, including, as we said, 4 in the last 2 games, 2 in each of the last 2 games. It marked the first time in Raiders history they scored multiple non-offensive touchdowns in consecutive games, and the Raiders are only the 2nd team in the NFL since at least 2000 to record multiple defensive touchdowns in consecutive games. The Bears in 2012 were the only other team to do it. All right, one more quick. What are you most impressed by? The impression that I get here, Michael Pittman Jr., only 1 catch away from 100 catches on the season. Zaire Franklin is only 6 tackles away from breaking the record that he set last year for the most tackles in a single season by a Colts player. He would have 167 tackles on the year if he can get at least 6 coming up on Sunday. Casey, what are you most impressed by, Pittman's season or Franklin's season?
I think it's Pittman's season because you knew how heavily he was going to be relied on, and I would say throughout the majority of the season, everybody knew where the football was going, and he continues to just produce. And if you put him in that category, if he gets that catch and he's up over 100 with 1,000 receiving yards, he becomes just the 4th Colts player to ever do it. Reggie Wayne's done it. Marvin Harrison's done it. And Dallas Clark has done it. Yeah. That's some elite company right there. Now, what Zaire is doing, I'm not at all downplaying at all because Zaire has just become a force over the last couple of years. He's a guy who you realize how important he is to the defense. But what Michael Pittman has done this year has been very, very impressive. And you talked about the loss of Julian Blackmon in a contract year. For Pittman, it's a contract year, and you talk about putting it out there. He's doing just fine when it comes to that. When free agency rolls around. So
I know what I don't have to ask you. I already know where you're going.
You know
the
where
wide
I'm going.
receiver here.
Yeah, you know where I'm going.
The diva.
I'm going with
a lot of ego over there, pal.
My big ego. You can't even fit in this room. Actually,
tell you what.
I'm glad you said it. You know?
We need a wider lens to fit you in here.
No, I'm going with Pitt, and to me, it's just his consistency, what he's done, coming in here, and also you think about what Pitt has done. He's done it with a new
different
offensive
quarterback.
system,
Yeah.
new quarterback,
Yeah.
because different from last year. So a new quarterback, and how
Two
many
of
how many quarterbacks has he had? You look at over his
it's a
career,
lot.
what he's done, and he's been consistent every year. So give the man credit for what he's done, and I just like, he has 99 catches last year, just missed it. Now he's 99 catches right now. Hope he's healthy. Hope everything's
Right.
well with him. Come back, play, and be productive out there in the football field. Go over 99. And as you mentioned, Casey, he's in some great company. You're talking about Reggie, Marvin, Dallas. So for him to do those things, and to me, when the Colts need a big play, a big passing play, and the defense knows that, okay, more than likely they're going to Pittman,
Right.
and he still makes the catch.
Still makes the grab, yeah.
And a big catch, first down, whatever it may be. That says a lot about that young man, and he's done a good job. He's done a very nice job for the team and been very dependable. Unfortunately, for outside of the injury he had last week, didn't play last week. Hopefully things get better, but I should say he's been more consistent when he's out there playing and done a great job.
What you just described, that's a dog. Definition of a dog, right?
Dog.
The go-to player. All right, the likelihood of all of these things happening coming up on Sunday or this weekend. Let's scoreboard watch here. We got the Titans at the Texans. Colts need the Titans to win after falling a couple weeks ago to Houston in overtime. We need the Panthers to beat the Jaguars. That game is in Jacksonville. Is Trevor Lawrence going to play? We don't know. He's got like 12 injuries
Is he
right
human?
now.
I mean, this guy's he's like every week he's got a new injury. Man,
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on that game. Steelers at the Seahawks. Obviously, the Colts need Seattle to win that football game. The Steelers, one of those 8-7 teams, kind of clipping at the heels of the Colts, as are the Cincinnati Bengals. This is the really big one.
Yes.
If the Colts could pick and choose one team to lose this week, knowing they play the Texans next week,
Right.
and can kind of control the outcome and control at least one more loss given to Houston, it would be this Bengals-Chiefs game. The Colts need the Bengals to really lose, root for Kansas City. We just talked about Patrick Mahomes and all of their ups and downs, that we need them to figure it out this
figure it out
weekend.
this week. Come on, Patrick.
Need
Come on,
Kansas
Andy.
City to
Figure it
bounce
out.
back. That
Travis
game-
Kelce, don't break your helmets. No more
Yeah.
throwing tantrums.
Right.
Let's, come on, just
Let's
go out.
stay off Instagram for like 6 days, and we'll be fine. That game is in Arrowhead, by the way. The Colts really need the Bengals to suffer an L coming up this weekend. All right, boys, you guys ready? 2 games left.
Man.
Touchdown Town, hype it up on the pregame show on Sunday.
Definitely. Touchdown Town.
You'll be
We'll
outside.
out there with,
Yep.
with Joe Wright
Yep.
and JMV and Jeffrey Gorman. Be out there. Everyone come out there and hear some music and listen to us talk about the game coming up against the Las Vegas Raiders. So come on out there, have some fun, and enjoy yourself, and
It really is a great
go
time.
into Lucas Oil Stadium and make some noise
Be
and
revved
have some
up.
fun. Be revved up and be ready to go.
All right, Bill Brooks on the pregame show. Like you said, that starts at 10 a.m. on the Colts pregame huddle, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. And then, Casey, you take over on the network beginning
right
at noon,
Yep,
on
at
Hank
noon.
FM and also The Fan as well.
Yeah,
in
and
Indy.
I mean, Bill talked about it. It's going to be hyped in Touchdown Town, and these fans have been wanting a playoff game for a long time. This is it. I mean, these next 2 weeks. This is
atmosphere.
playoff football right here. It may not be labeled in the play, but this is as important as it gets. So be loud and I want Lucas Oil to be rocking, because these are some really big games the next 2 weeks. I'm excited. I can't wait.
Indeed. Yep, the last 2 at home. Again, Casey's got you covered on Countdown to Kickoff beginning at noon. And then myself, Rick Venturi, Lair Overton, we take over with all the play-by-play beginning at 1 as the Colts look to take a big step forward, heading into the playoffs, trying to get a win over the Raiders. 6th straight year, by the way, the Colts and the Raiders have met in the regular season every year since 2018.
Wow.
It's just worked out that way between the crossovers and all that stuff. We don't need to get into that. But Colts trying to get a huge win at Lucas Oil Stadium. Happy New Year, everybody. That's going to do it for us here on the Official Colts Podcast. For Bill Brooks, Casey Vallier, Sherry behind the scenes, appreciate you very much for all that you do. Thanks for tuning in here on YouTube and the Colts Audio Network, wherever you download your podcast, and we'll break it all down again next week here on the Official Colts Podcast, brought to you by Wynn Las Vegas. Have a great weekend, everybody, and Happy New Year.